Am I getting him?
Yeah.
You can hear him?
Hi.
Okay, so I think I would just kind of like to preface by saying I've been doing interviews for a very long time, and I've interviewed Dallas a bunch, and it's always really enjoyable to do it. And I'm not just saying that because he's here and I'm trying to butter him up to make sure it's a good interview. What I want to be able to tell you guys is, instead of just doing the interview, tell you a little bit about how I wanted to approach it and why, and we'll just take a second. I kind of, and Dallas and I have talked about this before, I try to approach interviews the way that sometimes I write a song or I'm writing a script. I really try to craft a story, and what I love about talking to Dallas, he has this really interesting story. So along the way, I think I'm going to try to explain to you why I'm asking some of the questions instead of just asking them, because I really want you guys to understand where it's coming from, and I hope that's okay.
I think that's great. I think anybody who's looking at possibly interviewing people for a living should take note of that, because something I always say is good questions get good answers.
Well, let's hope. Thank you. So I think I'd like to start by first just asking about the Montreal show last night, because I know you've been kind of raving about it, and we talked a little bit about it backstage. And I want to kind of start there, because this is sort of the culmination of everything you've done with City and Color and as a musician kind of happened last night.
Yeah. For me, I'm like, I don't know, I kind of feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. And I know that sounds very obvious to say, and that's what most people say. But I write songs selfishly about myself and about how I'm feeling. And for some reason, people, at least now, are interested in either listening to me, lament, or taking whatever I'm singing about and applying it to their own worries or their own problems. And that's something that's very powerful, because it was the main reason I started singing and writing, is because I just wanted to make people feel the way that I felt when I heard a song that made me, just moved me in a way where you can't explain it, So, and I've been lucky. That was my goal when I was 14, 15 years old. So I have done that over and over and over and over since I was 14 years old, and it's something that surprises me every time it happens. And the second part of this is, I'm a very pessimistic person. I have a very, very, very difficult time allowing myself to be happy. I'm terrified of being happy, because I feel like if I'm satisfied or I'm happy or I feel pride in something, then it's almost like I'm embarrassed by it. It's a very, very weird feeling, and it's stupid, and I shouldn't be that way, but it's just, but I think that when you're doing something that you love more than anything, that can put you on top of the moon, like over the moon, and also just rip your heart out within literally the same minute, like being on stage. Like, you can have a moment where, or at least I can have a moment where everything seems perfect. Like I said to you earlier, how last night was a night where I felt like I was supposed to be doing it. And that's rare for me, because I put too much, I was going to swear there. I put too much pressure on myself for no reason other than myself. I don't know why I do, but every once in a while, everything works. And it's the reason I keep doing it. And last night was that moment. I've been terrified to go and do these arenas, because I don't think people are going to show up.
Right.
And that's how I am every day when I go anywhere in the world. And people are coming, and they have been coming, and I'm still terrified that they're not going to. And when it works, man, I can't even explain it. And I told my wife last night, and I've told her before, when she's been at shows that it's actually happened where I've enjoyed myself, I've said, I was crying when I came off the stage last night. And I said, that's why I can't be happy, because I'm constantly searching for moments like that, and it's rare. So it's
Is that
And
what?
I don't want this to come off as like a sob story.
No, no.
So don't feel bad for the successful guy. Like we always joke because we have this thing where we want to get a tranquilizer dart, so when I come off stage and I'm in a bad mood or I'm grouchy, somebody can just go and then drag me to the tour bus and I'll wake up the next day and be better.
Is that
I'm always my joke is that I'm always like, oh God, I'm so upset. People want to listen to my songs. Like that's what I'm complaining about. You know?
Is that where that lyric comes from? I think it's like you've always been dark with light somewhere in the distance. I'm probably saying it wrong, but
No, that's it, yeah.
is that the lyric?
That's it.
So there's hope. You see it. You just.
Oh yeah, I see it.
So that being said, you have this great show. 6,000 people buy tickets to come out and hear you play songs, and now because we're in a room full of many people who are aspiring musicians or people who want to be involved in not just music but the business of music in some capacity. Tell me about your very first Canadian Music Week showcase.
With Alexis?
Yeah, what you remember about it.
I remember, I mean, I think that was probably our first time like doing, playing for people who, where you're still thinking you can make it, and that's a thing. It's like if we go play in Toronto, that was even a thing because we're from St. Catharines, and I remember the first time I ever actually played in Toronto, and it was for nobody, but it was like we got to play in Toronto. But I think with us, we were a very resilient band, like if you saw the first couple of Alexisonfire practices, you probably, like my mom was like, what are you doing? And we were like, we don't know. We practiced in Wade's mom's basement, and you could see the look on her face when we'd come out of the room, like, is George he's just shouting? He's just shouting, and we'd be like, yeah, that's, So for us to then go, all right, everybody, check this out.
Right.
And to think that people were going to dig it, but for us, we just wanted to play, but for that showcase, we just went for it, I guess.
Did you have a sense? Was there a sense of possibility? A sense of did you come to this Canadian Music Week also because you thought someone's going to see us, something's going to happen?
Yeah.
You did have that sense of possibility?
Of course, because that's what you're sort of taught, But I mean, obviously, the landscape has changed so much with the internet, and we were right at the cusp of that, and we exist because we didn't have to necessarily, I think after we played that and realized that maybe we weren't going to get the mainstream attention, with the internet and with us sort of our music getting shared and tossed around, we kind of forced the mainstream to take notice of us, Like when we got that #1 video, it was a fan voted show, and our video, Familiarity, was #1. It blew people's minds.
Yeah,
no one.
I remember it was the first, for my first year, I was still living in Halifax. I was a guy in a heavy band, and I started working at Much Music. So it was so interesting to me to see that happening, because I started to give hope to all these other heavy bands.
Yeah, and that was amazing for us, and all it did was, I think the thing with us is we were very resilient, and we were very, kind of, when a door opened, we would run through and never look back.
Right.
So we never set giant goals for ourselves. I still don't. We still don't. It was always, okay, let's start this band because we want to play. Okay, now we're playing. Let's go tour around Ontario. Okay, we did that. All right, now let's try and go to Quebec. All right, let's try and go to the East Coast. Let's try and go to the West Coast. Okay. I remember Wade and I, we told each other, if we can get to Japan, because we play guitar, then we will have made it. We found ourselves in Japan in 2004. And we were like, we made it. That was 10 years ago. And I'm still going, all right, if I can, for me, I think I've said this to you before, but success for me is the ability to continue doing it. That's it.
Yeah. And that's what that's what I want to get to. I want to ask you about, and I'm going to kind of go back a little bit, because I want to try to pinpoint a moment with Dallas where he he figured out what he wanted to do, but also how he wanted to approach it, because it's those choices that are so important, I think, and that's what I really have dug about your career. So tell me about, I think you were 12 and you saw Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Neil Young. This was a concert you went to see.
And Blues Traveler.
And Blues Traveler.
They only played like 4 songs, I think.
And this was a big moment for you, this concert.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, that's a very impressionable age, like, so you're really soaking things in, and especially I've been playing guitar for a couple years already, and I've been really starting to become emotionally attached to music, especially because that era for me as a 90s, that I'm 92 is when I'm 12 years old, so, man, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, and that era is just ripping my face off, like, I am one of those people who was completely affected and changed by grunge and that explosion of style music. So I was going to see Pearl Jam because they were my favorite band. But I got to see Pearl Jam play, but then I also got to see Neil Young play. And I got to see my favorite band play with their favorite guy. And I got to see, like, this, for me it was a dream come true just going to see my favorite band play. But then you could see it on their faces that the dream come true wasn't the fact that there was all these people there to see them. The dream come true was that they got to be on stage and they were affecting somebody who affected them back when they were young. And that's when I started to get that real sense of, like, huge weight crashing upon you when you hear a song or have a moment seeing a live band. And then it just started going. I started going mental, and I've been crazy ever since.
And this began your kind of also your journey through appreciating Neil Young, not just his music, but his choices.
Yeah.
So what is it about Neil? What was it that connected with you about what he was doing?
Well, for me, I think the fact that he's been able to build a career off of doing what he wants to do. I mean, I've never met the man, but it seems like that's his sort of ideals. He goes where he wants to go, and people leave him and people stay with him, and new people come on, and but he seems to always follow what he feels is the right direction. And that's something that's very important to me as well, because I didn't get into this to be famous or to be a pop star or to be recognized or for people to want to take pictures of me or with me or talk about myself. I got into it because I can't not do it. So those were that moment, and when I started figuring out how to play my favorite band songs and then starting to write my own, it just, that's what I follow. I follow the feeling. That's why that's why I don't care what anyone says to me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, 6,000 people can stand in front of me and sing my songs back at me. But if I don't let myself appreciate that, then I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And it's really weird, but I don't know. I'm working on it.
So recently, Neil Young has been talking a lot about this new digital audio device, the Pono, right? And he said something where he said it. He called it. He said Pono is the absence of interference. And sonically I understand what he's saying, but I really started thinking about that, just that idea of the absence of interference. And I started thinking about it in terms of his career and your career, and it really kind of informed what I wanted to talk to you about today. And because we've done interviews before, and I know maybe a lot of people here haven't seen these interviews, but I didn't want to do the same interview, even though I thought they were really good. I wanted to try to find other things to talk to you about.
That's good of you.
Right? But this idea of the absence of interference, because it is about these choices he's made, and because we are in a room with so many people who are trying to navigate their way through the business of music, I thought it would be interesting to try to, at least from the beginning of both of your bands, try to look back now with hindsight and look at some of the choices you made to understand what worked, what didn't, and maybe why. Because we can do that with hindsight a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and I mean, I totally appreciate it, and we know that having a hit song or having a successful band or artist has so much to do with luck and the stars aligning, right time, right place, but then there's the talent, there's the slugging it out, there's paying your dues, and there's choices, right? So let's, if we can, we'll start with Alexisonfire, and you've touched on it. 2002, the first record comes out, the video goes to much, it blows up. So as it starts to snowball and something's really happening now, looking back, were there things that you guys did to harness the movement that was happening, or were you just going with the flow? Or can you look back and go, no, here's what we did right?
I think that if we really looked at it, we could probably find a bit of both, to be honest, you know, like, because we were young and naive, and we also, the people who we work with, who I always feel stupid saying work with, or my managers, because my managers are two people I've known since I was 16 years old, who basically, I was like, I'm gonna try and be a singer, and they were like, well, we'll help you. They didn't know how to do it either. So we all grew in this together. Basically, we made a deal. We'll go and play shows, and you guys try and figure out how to get us more. And that's pretty much what we still do. But so through all of that, we went, you know, many ups and downs, and I remember a good example of maybe they're not the best decision, but things are going crazy in Canada. So what do? Wade books a 2.5-week tour in the States, and we don't even have a record out there. And it was on a March break, so the three dudes that were 17 years old could miss the allotted amount of school without getting expelled, so we could go on tour in the States and play for no one and sleep in the van. Now that probably wasn't the best idea. Probably could have just, you know, waited till the summer and did some shows in Canada. But all those bad decisions, all those horrible times at the moment, those are my best stories. You know?
Yeah.
So I also have this really, the one thing I am proud of is that I feel I earned where I am, you know? Because I have played for nobody. I have driven, you know, 25 hours straight to play for nobody in the next town, or slept in the van, or, you know, had $5 a day to spend on McDonald's, and that's what you ate. And I've been through all that stuff, and I feel good. I feel like it's made me a better person. It's made me be a lot more thankful than I would if somebody just said, here's a bunch of money, go make a record, and it doesn't matter if it's good or not, we'll make it. We'll make people like it.
So then, I guess it's 2004-ish, that demo surfaces, the City in Color demo. Was it City in Color when the demo came out, or was it just Dallas Green?
It was probably just Dallas Green, I guess.
Okay.
It was stuff I had recorded when I was in high school before
Right.
Alexis.
So then, Alexisonfire fans hear it, they want more, you oblige, an EP comes out, and then the first full length, Sometimes,
Yeah.
it was called Sometimes?
Sometimes. The EP was 6 songs that were on Sometimes. But
Right.
I made 1,000 copies of it and did a little bar tour in Ontario and sold them.
Right. So once this starts becoming a thing, because at the beginning it was just this idea of, I liked writing these songs and I put them out there, now people want more, so I'm going to do it. So really that's all it was.
I was kind of pissed off, to be honest. I was like, no one should be hearing these songs. They were songs I wrote when I was a kid.
Before YouTube?
Before YouTube. And I was basically like, well, I'm going to go and record better versions of them if people want to listen to them.
Right.
And that's what City in Color was, that's how it started.
So that first record, the first full length comes out, that starts to become a thing. Granted, we know that you were doing things in between what was happening with Alexisonfire. But when that starts to become a thing, and now it's like, whoa, this is a real project. Now, with hindsight, looking back, did you just kind of do it when you could, or were there specific choices you made that helped it grow?
Well, I think the fact that so many people got into that first record without, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but without me really doing much. for it allowed us some kind of, and us being Joel and Trisha, and those are my pals, it allowed us to kind of like have a little bit of breathing room and kind of do with it what we wanted.
The absence of interference.
The absence of interference, because I was off on tour with this other band that was also people were into. So I'd come home and more people would have gotten into the record, and then, you know, if I had time, Joel would be like, "You want to go play some shows here, or you want to do a little tour here?" And if I felt like it, I would. And I think that not only the absence of interference, but the absence of me being attached to the City and Colour, people didn't know what to expect. And I think that maybe helped it grow, because no one knew what was going to come. Like, no one knew if I was going to make another record, no one knew if I was going to tour ever. I remember one year I played 2 shows in Edmonton. That was it. So I just booked 2 shows on a weekend in Edmonton. People were like, "What the fuck? You're just playing 2 shows in Edmonton?" I was like, "Well, I got this, I'm doing this other stuff." I'm on Warped Tour for 68 days in a parking lot every day.
See, what's so interesting to me about that and the beginning of City and Colour and how it grew like that is because it was almost out of necessity that you were, for lack of a better way of saying it, paying very little attention to it, aside from the fact that you're just writing songs.
Right.
Right? But there's something to be said about that, you know? Like, I interviewed Austin Mahone a little while. You know Austin Mahone?
Is he a young lad?
He's a young lad. So
Is he handsome?
Yeah, he's a handsome
Young,
guy.
handsome
He's got great hair.
There's a lot of those
He
out there.
So he's a YouTube phenomenon, right? So he started doing covers of Justin Bieber songs that he liked. And
Interesting approach.
And then
But the interesting approach, right?
Yeah.
You like this guy who blew up on YouTube doing covers, so you're gonna cover him on YouTube. Fucking weird. Like I'm talking about you and me. I'm saying that.
Oh, it's weird.
Think about our young teenage selves and wanted to be in bands.
Listen.
And that's what's going on now.
It's
weird.
It's completely weird. It's completely weird.
Yeah.
But this is my point. When I think about the absence of interference, right? And then I think about Austin Mahone. I interview this guy who I have literally been playing music and writing songs longer than he's been alive. And
we're old guys, by the way. We're crotchety old guys, right? You know that. Just we're admitting it. It's fine.
So he goes and he starts to, a fan base starts to grow, and because I asked him this question, you know, and he was like, it was just crazy. All of a sudden, there's a lot of views, and all of a sudden, he starts getting requests from people to play. So then his mother starts booking him to play girls' birthday parties.
Interesting.
That is the new slugging it out on the road in bars, for all intents and purposes, when you think about that world.
Right.
And then it snowballs, and now Austin Mahone is signed with Scooter Braun, and it's going to be this big thing, right? So there's something to be said, and it's working. I'm not dogging it here at all. It is working. It's not my thing. I don't connect with it, but it is working, and it's a viable thing. But there's something to be said for what you did with City and Colour, and that also worked.
Yeah.
It also works.
And it's the internet.
And it's still the internet.
It is absolutely, and it's even 100% more than what the internet did for Alexis, because the amount of people who listened or started listening to City and Colour everywhere else in the world, because when we first put out, sometimes we just put it out in Canada. You know, my second record came out in the States before my first record. After we put the second,
because you got the Vagrant deal.
So we didn't even Bring Me Your Love came out in the States in 2008, and then once we kind of started building a little bit more, then we were like, oh well, we'll finally put the first record out there. So, but people were coming, and if I can go down and tour in the States and play pretty big shows. But if you looked at my record sales, and you looked at the media attention I get, which is none, it wouldn't, you know.
Doesn't make sense.
Like the people, so, and it's the internet. It's people listening, telling their friends, downloading it, and coming to the show, which I'm fine with because I actually really like playing. And I've only ever known touring, you know. So it's working out for me, you know. Like, but then you have these people who have 6 million YouTube views and a million downloads of their single, and they go and they can't sell 500 tickets.
I guess my point is, and why I even bring that up and compare it, is that we're told so often, and I remember coming to conferences like this and just because I'm such a sucker for possibility, you know, and I would just want to try to do whatever I could to try to get my music heard, you know, and I see how quickly things are changing, and how almost now, because of social media, literally every day it seems like the model changes because something new happens. But I guess my point is, the Austin Mahones and the Cody Simpsons of the world, that can work, that works, but it doesn't mean that this doesn't work anymore.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I know. I'd love to have. I mean, I'd love to think that some kid in his mom's basement who's writing songs right now can still make a record and put it out and go on tour, and people will find out about it.
Yes.
I hope that is still possible. And not because I want real music to live on and all that bullshit. I mean, I do, but who cares? The future is the future, and we can't do anything about it, you know? Bieber's buying monkeys and walking around shirtless. We can't do anything about it. Right? Which is weird. No one can do anything about it. Right? But that's the world we live in. But I don't know. And that's why when kids ask me advice, I can't give you the advice that I would, 16-year-old Dallas would have told you, because what I was thinking about the music business when I first started is completely different, like you said. And that was only 10 years ago, and it's miles apart from what it was. And it stayed the same way for how long? The record business was booming. They gave bands a ton of money. They made records, and some of them hit and some of them didn't. And that was the way it was for 30 years. And then all of a sudden this thing comes along and changes everything. And you can't adapt to it. So when somebody asks me, what advice would you have? I just say, listen. Make sure you're listening to a lot of stuff, you know? That's advice I could give now. I don't know.
I want to go and talk about just this idea of choices a little bit more. And I guess, well, let's start with this. We don't have to go too much into it because you've talked a lot about it, especially with the cycle of the hurry and the harm, because a lot of the songs are about you leaving Alexisonfire. But I guess my question would be, because I don't think I've talked to you about this before. When did you realize that City and Color was no, that's the wrong way to put it. When did you realize that doing both of these projects was becoming very difficult for you? Because, and I rewatched one of the interviews you and I did. I rewatched it last night, and a couple of quotes that really stood out to me. You know, you said things like, there was a moment when both of these bands were doing really well. You said, you know, it's the ultimate be careful what you wish for. You said to me, this was the unhappiest time I was in my life.
Yeah.
And that's such a powerful thing to say when you have two very popular bands.
Well, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, look at what I'm complaining about.
I know.
But
it doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
So I guess I want to know, at what point, because we know that you had to make a choice, and we know you made a choice. At what point did you start realizing this is just not going to work? Was it a long time?
Well, yes. It was I mean, I guess around the time of Crisis and Bring Me Your Love, which were a year apart, I think, where we were because Crisis was our biggest record and we were touring a lot, and then Bring Me Your Love came out before it and was also got really popular, and that's when I really started paying more attention to City and Color and started doing a lot more instead of just leaving it off to the side. I started becoming interested in wanting to go and play and tour and do things like that with it, because I started to really appreciate the songs, and appreciate the time people were spending with it. Yeah, but then it just got to a point where I was doing both so much that I just wasn't enjoying either of them, you know? And then I started to think, well, what the fuck am I putting myself through all this for? Why am I always gone? Why am I, why would I see my mom in a year?
Mm-hmm.
To be unhappy, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I know I'm still unhappy, but I'm happier unhappy now. But I got to a point where, that's weird, but I remember the day when I made the decision. I was in Boston. I played a show, City in Color. It was a great show, and I hated it. And I had flown in for this little tour because we were just finishing an Alexis tour, and I flew in to do these little shows in the States. And I played in Boston, and after the show we went to the hotel, and I was laying in bed, and I emailed Joe and Trish, and I said, I can't do it both anymore. And I think that was probably 2010. And then we didn't tell anybody. I stayed in the band for another 6 months. And then in the summer of 2010, I sat down with the guys in May, and I said, we had a meeting. We were having a meeting to talk about the rest of the year, and I said, before we start the meeting, I'm gonna leave the band. Fuck. It's horrible. But I had to say it. But I decided, and then it took me 6 months to tell them.
Tell me about the getting the platinum record for "Bring Me Your Love." Weren't you?
Oh yeah. We were in Birmingham.
Alexisonfire was.
Alexis, yeah, we just played, and we earlier in the day I had found out that "Bring Me Your Love" had gone platinum, and I didn't tell anybody.
Because you didn't really.
I was embarrassed.
You didn't really talk about City in Color with the guys.
I never talked about it. Anything that happened, I never talked about it because I was embarrassed by it. I thought the guys were mad at me, or they wouldn't. So I.
You were embarrassed because of what you thought they would think, or in general it was
in
just.
general, I'm very embarrassed by people liking what I do.
But was it also this idea that you were in this kind of punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call it? You were in a band where an audience that loves that kind of music really loves that music, and sometimes they don't want to deviate outside it. Right. Was there something to it, a scene thing as well?
No.
Okay.
I've never cared about the scene. I cared about being in a band.
Okay, so it was
I never cared about the scene, because as soon as you start caring about the scene, then you're following the rules, and all those scenes are about not having any rules, but really they're just full of rules.
So you were
punk rock never really made sense to me in that way,
Sure, yeah, I know.
Anti-establishment, even though we're an establishment.
Yeah, it's all about being different, but you don't look like us, so you can't join.
It's all about being different, but we can only listen to this style of music.
Yeah, I understand. So it was okay. I understand. So it was the guys. The story goes: you got the platinum record.
Yeah, I got the email saying "Bring Me Your Love" just went platinum. I didn't tell anybody, and we went out to dinner after the show, and I secretly paid for it to celebrate for myself. It's pretty fucked up. But that was kind of, and that's why when everybody got mad and was like, oh, he just wants to go off by himself and be solo, I never did. You know how many times we sat with major labels who were trying to sign Alexis, but secretly they'd take me and ask me to leave the band and sign a major label deal with them?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you next. So you made this choice to leave Alexisonfire because you wanted to focus on City in Color. And you talked about, you're selling tickets in the U.S., people are coming to see you, but you're not getting on the late night talk shows, the media is not quite there. So have there been other opportunities? Has there been an opportunity for you to sign with a bigger company to get to more people's ears? And why have you made the choice to stay independent with these independent labels?
Well, the main reason is creative control. It's because I don't want anyone telling me what to do. And if that comes out to me making a bad decision, then I'll live with it. But knowing that if anything goes wrong with what I do, it's my fault, my own fault. It's very important to me. So, and the fact that we built Dynalon Records where Joel and I were sitting in a car driving, going, Joel was like, I guess I'll start a label and we'll put the City and Color record out. So the fact that we started it from there and now it's one of the biggest labels in Canada, I'll take that over some guy in a suit telling me what to do, or some person telling me that I gotta cut my hair or sing a certain way or get somebody to help write me songs. And that's why we left the label, because they tried to, because we license our stuff out everywhere. This one label, we're like, maybe we should try and get some songwriters in and help you write some hits. Thank you, you will not be putting out the next record. So yeah, but that's how I am. That's me. That's not everybody's, not everybody has to be that way, you know? And I think it also depends on what you want out of this. If you want to be famous and a pop star, then go do all that. Find the best guys and write the hits, get the formula and do that. I do not want that. I want to sing my songs and, you know?
Yes.
My friend Lisa, who's a journalist, and I guess I would call her my friend. I would guess like you know, I would call you my friend even though we just talk like this, which is weird. But she told me, she said something really nice to me that has lasted with me for a while. She said, the world needs rock stars, but they also need singers of songs. And she said, that's what you are to me, a singer of songs. And I thought that's a great description, I think, for what I want out of this whole thing. And it's not, like I said, it's not, no offense to anybody who it's just not for me. I want to sing and play, that's it.
Why did you make the choice to not play the Junos this year?
Well, there's a good example of me being able to make my own decision. Is the Junos, the people who run the show, came and asked us if we would like to perform, and I've done it before, and it's been fun. And you know, obviously the record was out, and we said sure. And I think that when the people asked us, they assumed that I was going to get some nominations. And then we assumed that by asking us, they were going to give us some nominations. But then we found out the way they do it is it's sort of like a bunch of people vote, and then it gets shoved down to a panel of people, and then those people vote on what the votes are.
Yeah, have you not done those before?
No, I don't.
I've sat on those.
Okay, so that's how it works. And I guess the people the final decision makers, didn't think my record was deserving of a nomination, which is totally fine. But I don't think the two were talking. So they announced the nominations and the performers on the same day, and I was the only performer who didn't have any nominations. So I figured, and I was not mad. I just said, well, I'm not going to play. You give it to somebody who's nominated. It makes zero sense. If your show is about celebrating the year in Canadian music and awards, and you're giving awards out to people who you think deserve an award, then give the people who are performing a slot as well. Like, make it be one thing. Because then basically what I was thinking is they're asking me to play because I'm popular. I'm not willing to do that, you know. My dad would have got mad at me if I had done that, you know. So give it to a band who's never played. I played on it. It's great. I've won some. It's great, thank you, but I'm not going to go, you know? And then people were mad at me, and they tried to, you know, call me and tell me to do it, and I said, no, I'm sorry. I appreciate that people will read it and think that I'm a sore loser, but that's not what it was. I just, they didn't think I was deserving of a nomination, so I shouldn't be there. Plus, I'm playing that arena next week. You know, I was thinking that too, like, I'm not going to piss any of my fans off in Winnipeg, not playing on television for 5 minutes. I'm going to go play for 2 hours for you. I think that makes sense, no?
Yes.
You know, but then you got all these fucking people, oh, he's a, shut up. Say it to my face. Don't say it anonymously on the internet, please.
How do you, no, it's so interesting, and this is why I always enjoy talking to Dallas, and people kind of are like-minded in that way, is that the weirdest thing for me, and I didn't even realize it after having interviewed people for 12 years, is that I was doing this research on fame, and I didn't even realize it, because I was talking to people and they were telling me how unhappy they were. And as a guy, and I think it was someone in the Rio Statics who said, anybody in a dying band believes that every other band sucks, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I had tried so hard.
Most guys in bands too think every other
Yeah. But I had tried so hard in my own, with my own musical pursuits, that I was so intrigued by talking to people who had somehow cracked the formula or whatever it was. And then I started realizing how this idea of fame was really affecting so many people, whether it was Alanis or even talking to Rain from I Love You Peace or whoever it was just this common thread. And I guess knowing that you kind of come from that school of like, you know, I'm uncomfortable with this idea of fame. I'm uncomfortable with how it makes people kind of sometimes treat me. How do you navigate your way through it? Like I even watched it here as you showed up today. Like it's this unnatural interaction with people. But this is what this music that you really love doing, just because you love doing it, it brought all that to you. Yeah. So how do you navigate through that?
Well, you have to. Now we're in a different world right now because fame has become. I've said this before, but people don't say hello anymore. They say, "Can I have a picture?"
Right.
That's the new hello.
It's the new hello.
It is. Anybody who comes up to me on the street, first thing they say, almost 90% of the time, is, "Can I have a photo with you?" And I say, "Yes, but can you introduce yourself like a normal person and let's have a 3-second interaction, and then we'll take a photo." So that's something that you have to deal with, which is weird, right? Because everyone has a camera, so it's becoming this thing. Oh, look what I did. Well, you didn't really meet me. You just took a photo beside me and didn't say anything. You could have met me. We could have had a conversation.
Is that 24 seconds? Are we done? Is that what's happening?
Thanks very much.
No, I thought. No, wait. I thought it was just at like 9 minutes. Is that what's happening?
I think it might have been off and it might have been corrected. I'm not sure, but if you want to do one more quick question,
Can I
or
do
take
one more
questions from the
Oh,
audience.
I don't care.
I'll just do one more question. Oh, I got so many. 1 second. I'm gonna ask one more question. Okay? Oh man.
Sorry, I talk too much.
No, it's you don't. Okay, so I get the last thing I would want to ask then is just taking into account everything we talked about. You know, touching on how you've navigated your way through it and the choices you've made and this absence of interference which you kind of lived by, and or at least you tried to, right? You're halfway through a cycle, I guess, of the Hurry and the Herm. You went to Nashville and you recorded with people you hadn't met, and it was the first record without thinking about Alexisonfire record. So it's almost like a whole new slate for you. So I'm curious to know now, how do you think? Do you start thinking about how you're going to keep going, or is it still just this absence of interference where I'm just going to keep making songs and roll with it? Is that what you do?
That's what I do, and that's how I think I will always be. If I start thinking about what I'm going to do next, or if I start thinking about wanting to do a certain style of music or write a certain style of song, then it's not going to be what people, I think, connect with what I'm doing. So again, like I said, success for me is the ability to continue doing what I do, and for me, continuing doing what I do is doing what I've always done: is write songs and do exactly what I think is the right idea. And I think the most people who know me and like the songs I write will evolve with me, because they have. Because if you listen to my first record, my second record, or my fourth record, or you listen to Alexisonfire, it's completely different. But it's me at the core of it all, and I think hopefully that's what people dig is whatever I've got.
Cool.
They're picking up what I'm putting down, you know.
Right on. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening. I'm always
I just want to say thanks for the chats over the years, man. I really appreciate it.